I'll give you an example, and this is something we're exploring in the documentary. Um, Bruce Lee's first teacher of martial arts, as far as I can ascertain, was his father, Hoy Chun. Hoy Chun has been kind of dismissed as being, well, the only thing interesting about him is he's the father of Bruce Lee. He was a very interesting man in his own right. Um, the first 15 films that Hoy Chun made in Hong Kong, he was the lead. He was the star.
Oh,
He
okay.
was one of the four most acclaimed. Uh, they were called the four heroes of Chinese opera. And he was also a Wu style Tai Chi practitioner. It's interesting when you look at Bruce. I mean, everything. Well, he did Wing Chun, but you look at Donnie Yen, it's like Wing Chun, Yip Man. And if you look at Bruce, if you do a Bruce Lee impersonation, or you look at the Bruce Lee statues, the fingers are soft. They're Tai Chi hands. They're
Mhm.
not. They're not the hard,
Sure.
kind of Wing Chun or boxing or whatever you want to call it. He does his hands from Tai Chi, and then when he's fighting Bob Baker in Fist of Fury, he does like Wan Sao, cloud hands. And in Wu Tai Chi, the basic position, like I do Tai Chi from the Chen, and everything's upright from like a central axis. Now, with the Wu practitioners, they have a slightly tilted stance that they call tilting will. I'm just translating now. It's kind of tilting willow or like bending willow. And Bruce talked about, I think, several of his films, but the one that stuck in people's minds as Game of Death would open with this image of heavy snow falling on an oak tree and the branch of the oak tree, this big solid branch, breaking, but the same snow falling on a willow and the willow would survive. So I'm thinking, well, where was that coming from? Did he just, you've got bending willow being the first stance he would learn from his father, and then you've got that philosophical concept. Now, Bruce, in his later life, was, oh, that's all the classical mess, all of that's nonsense, none of it works. It's interesting. The most famous challenge match in modern Hong Kong history was Chan Hak Fu versus Wu Gongyi it took place in Macau in 1954. And the same night that that fight was happening in the ring between White Crane and Tai Chi and Wu style Tai Chi, the same Tai Chi that was being practiced by Bruce's father. Lei Hoi Chun and his son were doing an opera performance at Lei Yun Amusement Park in Hong Kong. And in between performances would run backstage to listen on the radio to the fight to see how Tai Chi was holding up against White Crane and
Yeah,
back and
sure.
forward. And I think it's interesting. I've just been talking for a few minutes, but I think probably 90% of the Bruce Lee aficionados, if they're tuned into your channel, don't know about that. And you wouldn't
No.
because it's very much part of the fabric of of Hong Kong Chinese culture. And even me, I feel a bit removed, but I've got Robert Lee and I've got, different Kung Fu masters. Andrew Pong, who is my producing partner, he's the son of Chin Siu Ho, who's a famous kung fu actor. His grandfather on his maternal grandfather is Chan Hak Fu, the guy that fought on behalf of White Crane, and
Oh,
Andrew, my partner.
yeah,
So
that's cool.
you're not gonna get if you're living in Burbank,
Yeah.
you're not gonna get you're not gonna get that
No, not at
necessarily,
all.
right? But at the same time, for me, I often commit, I would sure when I'm writing or if I write about Europe or America or I write about aspects of American culture, it would be, I did write a script called Bride with White Hair set in the Civil War, and I kept page by page, would send these to, I mean, I should have sent them to historians, but I don't know any. I would just send them to Americans who would know. And I said, is the language accurate? Is this how it would have been? Because I relished the challenge, but at the same time, it was, you should confront what scares you, right? I was like, boy, this somebody from who studied the Civil War might read this and go, oh my God, this is like, who wrote this? This is like when I might see a script for something set in Hong Kong. I mean, I remember when Jet Li made, I think it was his first American film,
Yeah.
Romeo Must Die, is him and Aaliyah and who's in that? Russell Wong, I think. Romeo Must Die. I used to kid around. I used to say that script was originally for Sammo Hung and it was called Romeo Must Diet. boom. But anyway, no, and that opened the first shot of that movie is the Hong Kong skyline. And then you cut into this kind of bamboo gulag, and it's like, Chiang Mai prison camp. And I'm sure in the rest of the world, that movie did okay. Everybody
Sure.
went, yeah, look, it's a prison camp. When that movie played in Hong Kong, when that I was at the premiere, when that came up, the roar of laughter from the crowd, from the audience. They were like, chair, because
Yeah,
because we
yeah,
live here, we know there's
right.
nothing like that. I mean, give me a break, it was just funny, but it's an example of how somebody sitting in an air-conditioned, studio office goes, yeah, and you know what? Jet Li's character, when we first meet him, he's in Hong Kong, and it's Hong Kong under Chinese rule. So there's this horrible labor camp. There's this kind of brutal prison like Alcatraz, and you're like, no. But anyway, I mean, it's movies, so I mean, you can do
Sure.
whatever you like. But
Yeah.
yeah, if you live in and the same is true. There's been films that have made here, like A Man Called Hero, where they were in New York. And at one point, I think it was cut out from later versions, but when I was at the premiere, at one point in New York, there's this clash between the foreigners and the Chinese, and the Ku Klux Klan are marching down the street in New York in support of the white guys. And I mean, I don't think the Ku Klux Klan have they ever marched in New York,
I
or
doubt it. I don't
are
think
they in
they'd
the
be welcome
South?
there too much. I
Yeah,
think
are
they
they in the South?
originated in Indiana, actually, in the Midwest.
Right.
I believe so. But yeah, they would
But
be
I mean,
very prevalent in the South,
but
obviously.
you can see from a Chinese person's perspective, oh,
Oh,
we want to express racism. So yeah, we'll get this, all the guys in the white things marching in New York. And I'm sure, and that I think it was cut from subsequent, people were actually offended enough by it,
yeah, probably got a
Americans.
lot of flack. They're like, that don't make any sense.
Yeah, and I think it was also felt that it was insensitive
Mm,
because obviously
that
the whole
too, yeah,
history of the
sure.
South and the Klan. So it was cut out from subsequent. I don't think there's any version of it available now, but I remember very clearly at the premiere and thinking, boy, I wonder how that's going to land with American audiences.
Yeah. Wow. Well, they cut it out, like I said. So,
But I mean, I think to me, it's like both. The other thing that I think Enter the Dragon and Bloodsport really shared with an audience was, even though they were financed and produced by overseas people, this might run counter to what I've just been saying, but because they came to Hong Kong, they engaged very um, talented and very kind of like experienced local crew people, and Charlie Wang from Salon, that he actually provided the Panavision cameras for Enter the Dragon, and later was a producer on Bloodsport. I
that's
mean,
cool.
incredible, sad loss to the industry. He passed away quite a few years ago now, but he was like a key figure, and you really get the texture of Hong Kong, like the opening montage of Enter the Dragon, bam, 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 ba bam, 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 and you see all the kind of the building with the stilts holding it up, and the kind of the fish mark and everything. And the same thing with Bloodsport when you go into the Kowloon Walled City, and all of that texture that you see. It really shares the texture of Hong Kong and takes you into that world. And I'm sure
Yeah,
there's
yeah.
many people, me being a preeminent, I came to visit when I was 19 and came to live here quite a few years later. But after that, but I mean, definitely inspired by, boy, that place, I kind of got a feel for it from watching it in a movie.
The power of cinema, man. It when done right, it takes you, it's an escape and it takes you to a place you ordinarily wouldn't see. I mean,
Did
especially
you
when those
ever?
movies came out,
Yeah.
travel wasn't, as popular. Now like
No.
people go everywhere all the time, but back then it was like you may
I
never
mean,
go to Hong Kong in your life if you're in the United States ever.
well, I think in America, isn't it like what percentage of Americans have a passport to travel
Oh,
that,
I
that
don't
allows
I
them?
don't know what percent.
Tiny, tiny
There's
fraction.
so many Americans that haven't even been to like New York or
Yeah.
California, for example.
I don't know what the percent, but I heard it was a tiny percentage of people had a valid passport, and the furthest they would go is Canada and Hawaii. And so you're absolutely right that people wouldn't. I was curious. Another connecting factor of Enter the Dragon and Bloodsport is Bolo.
Oh,
Bolo,
true.
Bolo,
Of
yeah.
course, of course.
Have you? How come you've never had him on your show?
He's very hard to get. I I don't know if they even got him for the Bloodsport documentary. You know, the big Bloodsport documentary put out from the guys in Germany, like Sean David,
Yeah,
for example,
yeah.
from Last Kumite.